Do you know there are sounds everywhere? I know that you don't hear them, but everywhere there's sound. When you open a door, that's a sound. When you knock on a door, what? Ring a doorbell, that's a sound. Right. What's that? What does that mean? Oh, a lion? A lion roar, right. Everything makes a sound. You're going to be right back? I said that if you had a cochlear implant, you could talk on a telephone. Are you telling Amanda that? You're telling? What are you telling Amanda? What? You're telling Amanda about getting an implant?
I was the oldest child in my family, and I'm deaf. I would never say I prefer to be hearing. I really am happy being deaf. It's very peaceful. Who would want to change that? In my heart, I know this is who I am. If somebody gave me a pill that would make me hearing, would I take it? No way. I'd want to go to a hospital and throw it up and go back to being deaf. I want to be deaf. So when all three of my children were born deaf too, I thought, great, my kids are just like me. I started signing to my oldest Heather when she was a baby in my arms. And now I look at her and I'm amazed. At 5, she's already fluent in sign. So when Heather came to us and said she wanted this cochlear implant, it really upset me. I felt she was rejecting me and my wife. She wanted to be different. She wanted to hear.
It's very unusual for a 5-year-old deaf child to say that she wants to hear and speak and use the telephone. I think it's because we're the only deaf family in our whole neighborhood. Heather wants to communicate with hearing people. I understand her motivation, but I just want her to be happy the way she is.
A hearing person really can't understand how you could be happy if your child is born deaf, because everyone they know is hearing. So when my brother and his wife had twins and found out one of them was deaf, they were just devastated.
There we go.
When we found out Peter was deaf, we were very upset.
Oh, yeah.
And despite the deafness in the family, when we found out, it was a devastating blow. Peter?
Yes, ma'am.
Finished?
I just have a CD player here that I'd like you to listen to just to sort of get an idea as to what hearing loss sounds like. They filtered out all of the frequency information above 250 hertz, even more than what your son is getting right now. That, what you just heard, that's probably even better than what your son is getting right now.
I've never heard any simulation of that, so it's pretty amazing.
I didn't know what they could hear or if that's considered hearing.
Being an audiologist for 25 years, it never gets any easier for me to tell a parent that their child is deaf.
Hearing that CD and thinking about Peter, it killed me. And part of me died.
With a cochlear implant, the child will be able to hear. There are some children who are so profoundly deaf that they really don't get a whole lot of benefits from a hearing aid.
The younger, the better. And why? Because when children are younger, they're learning language, and it becomes a much more natural process than trying to learn language later on.
When we do a cochlear implant in an 18-month-old, that child is able to hear, develop speech, and relates not to deaf people, but to hearing people.
When he was first diagnosed and the audiologist had said, oh, he's an implant candidate, our view was, no way, we've heard, the implant isn't that successful, it's really, don't even bother looking into it. Then word of mouth started trickling down to us that maybe we should investigate it.
And in this classroom, there's several children who were born deaf, came in through our infant program, received cochlear implants at 2.5, 3 years of age, and now have been in our preschool program for a couple of years. And these children are getting ready to go into kindergarten next year.
Wow.
Oh. Hello.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Say hi. Hi. Loud, hi. Okay, everybody is going to have a turn, okay? All right, Shelby, can you ask everybody, is everybody ready?
Everybody, are you ready?
Go ahead.
Good morning, good morning. How are you? How are you?
Shelby, was she born deaf?
Okay, Shelby was born deaf, and she was implanted, I believe, at about 2.5 years.
And how old is she now?
She was 5 last December.
So in 2.5 years, her speech has gotten that way.
Right. And of course, when her implant's not on, she's a deaf child again.
Right.
Okay.
All together. Say, how are you, Karina?
How are you, Karina?
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, good. And you
When we
said,
saw
how
those
you
kids,
Karina?
I was flabbergasted.
Okay, Lindsay.
These kids
How are you,
could
Karina?
hear.
How are you, Karina?
The idea of this cochlear implant surgery is so scary. It's so invasive. They drill through the skull and have to go very deeply inside. I'm afraid that cochlear implants are going to create a bunch of robots. It just doesn't seem right for a deaf person because our natural communication is signing and being in the deaf world. When I was a child, and when my parents spoke, I was completely lost. I would watch their gestures and their body language, but I had no idea what they were saying. I could hardly communicate with them at all. But finally, I learned sign language, and I think that's when my life really began. English is just moving lips. It has no meaning for me. But sign is so visual, it's got emotion. I could communicate for the first time. My fear is that if Heather were implanted, she wouldn't be part of the deaf world or the hearing world. She'd be part of some cochlear implant world. When Heather plays with her hearing friends, she does get frustrated. She turns to her mother and me and asks what they're saying. Well, we don't know either. We're deaf too. I feel so helpless. She wants to communicate with them so badly. So she says she wants a cochlear implant now.
Why do you want a cochlear implant now?
Because I want to hear everything.
Everything?
I need to hear alarms, smoke detectors for fire, and what else?
Many different things.
A saw, nails being hammered into wood, the telephone, a saw cutting down a tree, cars crashing, horns beeping, beep beep, and what else? Hear all the people talking in Florida and New York.
Different states, huh? I was closed-minded before. I didn't like the cochlear implant. I thought it didn't fit with the deaf world. But then I remembered what it was like for me as a child. I grew up in a family where I was the only deaf person and where the whole town was hearing. It was very frustrating. I never learned how to speak, and I felt like an outcast.